Alright, so one more way you can add light is using one of the Rhino lights, and really the only one I recommend using is the point light. You could try using the spotlight if it works out for you, but the Rhino lights are pretty limited within the Enscape just because of the interaction between the programs. So let's take a look at the point light. Um, so I'm going to go in, and in my rendering here, I'm going to go ahead and go to the sun settings and just take it to night. Click OK, and then I'll go back to, I'm going to go into my multiple views so I can see the top here, as well as the side. And there's a couple of different ways you can get to the lights. There's a lights panel that you can bring out, a tab up here. There's also a panel that you can bring out, lights. So I'm going to use the light panel here. And down at the bottom is a plus, and you can add lights that way. So I'm just going to click on the add light. I'm going to add a point light. It's like a glowing orb, really. So I'm going to left click on that. And then I'm just going to come, you can place it, in either view. I'm just going to place it in my front view here, just sort of near the center. And you can see it, this building is in the center, so it's placing it pretty much on the axis plane. So I'm just going to left click. And you'll see that that light comes into Enscape and starts to illuminate it. So a couple of things that you can control with the light. So I'm going to hit escape a couple of times, pick this light. And if you go to the properties, if you go to the properties and get the correct part of the light, you get intensity, color, and shadow intensity. I don't know that the shadow intensity does anything, but you can come in and sort of turn the light down, and Enscape tends to wig out a little bit again with that. So if you turn it off, turn it back on, you can make sure that your enable disable live updates in Enscape works, and also double check if you open up the Enscape visual settings window, double check on your rendering. There's an auto exposure, and so if it's probably set to the middle by default. Let me just reset Enscape again after I've done that. See if we get a little bit of light on this guy. So let me set the view. All right. So sometimes you have to reset Enscape, but basically that's where you start. So if it were set at 100, it kind of blows it out. Right, it gets really bright, and then so around 50, it gets a little bit more usable, and so you can go and and move that guy around and get yourself some sort of general ambient light that way, and you can of course place it wherever you want. So I could move it closer. Let's zoom out a little bit, move it closer, and it's going to adjust where that light is shining, or move it further back. Right, and it'll just adjust where that light is. So you can go in and sort of play around with that. I'll Control Z back until we get it back to the middle, and I'll just delete that light. The other kind of light that you can give a shot, I don't have a lot of luck with adjusting it, is the spotlight. So if you come in and pick spotlight, what I typically will do is it snaps to things. So if you know that you have an area, like the edge of this floor, you can kind of snap on it to get it to center itself. So right now it's actually going down to the base, but that's all right, we'll do that. So you kind of set the cone size. So if I set it a little smaller, and then you can go into the top view, and if I zoom into this view, right, I can left click and it'll set that light, and then you can come in and sort of adjust it. So if I come in here, you can come into this little guy here and pick the light location point and kind of move it, where it's more sort of on top of the, whoops, get that, where it's more vertical, right? You can move it back into vertical, and then if you come in and if you pick sort of this middle point, you can move it more into the scene where you want it, right? And let's go ahead and sort of, you can also scale it, right, and move it kind of up, so you're getting that light. And again, it can be a little dicey, how it works, but once you get that light into the space, it starts to, you know, illuminate that space. And you can try, again, resetting Enscape and seeing what it looks like, um, making sure that, what you've got in there is what you, right? But it tends to be a little flary and a little glary, these spotlights, and so I'm going to come in and I'm going to turn this guy down to 50%, right? And then Rhino crashes. So I would not recommend using the spotlight. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.